Have you ever watched someone on TV and think, I can do that way better? I find myself sometimes doing that watching sports. I'm definitely wrong. Have you ever seen somebody do something and think, I will never be able to do that, or I literally would have died if I tried that? That's how I feel reading Lord of the Rings sometimes, especially our chapter today. Fighting wargs definitely would not make it, and they would just have to pile some rocks on me and be on their way. Hello everyone, welcome to Aude and Sulliva, where we are walking our way through Tolkien's Legendarium. Today we are in Book 2, Chapter 4, A Journey in the Dark. Don't forget to check out the description for a few of my favorite versions of the book if you'd like to purchase any of them and help out the channel. All right, let's dive in. After their defeat at the proverbial hands of Caradhras, the company has to figure out how they're going to proceed. When Gandalf poses their options of continuing on or going back to Rivendell, Frodo replies, I wish I was back there, he said, but how can I return without shame, unless there is indeed no other way? And we are already defeated. You are right, Frodo, said Gandalf. To go back is to admit defeat and face worse defeat to come. If we go back now, then the ring must remain there. We shall not be able to set out again. Then sooner or later, Rivendell will be besieged, and after a brief and bitter time, it will be destroyed. The Ringwraiths are deadly enemies, but they are only shadows yet of the power and terror they would possess if the ruling ring was on their master's hand again. Gandalf basically gives us a quick recap of pages and pages of debate in the Counts of Elrond, but here we really see Frodo understanding the situation and possibly trying to make sure the other hobbits understand it too. He could have just said, we have a job to do, let's do it. Except he would make sure to talk about how it's to admit defeat. And of course, Gandalf is there to further reinforce the idea by letting us know staying in Rivendell would be bitter and would end in destruction. Not exactly a cheery thought. We then start to see how the journey is affecting some of the company already. Then we must go on if there is a way, said Frodo with a sigh. Sam sank back into gloom. It seems Sam brightened a little at the thought of going back to Rivendell, but sinks back into his gloom. But Frodo here is just resigned. He knows what he has to do and hates every moment of it. I mean, at this point, the last couple of weeks have probably been the hardest of all of his life, even just since leaving Rivendell. The biting cold wind, the snow on Caradhras, and the fact that he almost died from exposure. And here I can see Gandalf putting on a bit of optimism in saying there is a way that we may attempt. Possibly fake optimism to keep the, let's say, less experienced members of the company's hopes up. Now, let's take a quick sidebar and talk about hope. Tolkien has two words in Elvish for our one word of hope, but they have pretty different meanings. The first is Amdir. Amdir is your run-of-the-mill hope, like me thinking, man, I hope I can get pizza tonight. It's optimism, or as Tolkien wrote in the Athrabeth Finrad a Andrath, an expectation of good, which though uncertain has some foundation in what is known. It's grounded in known factors. What we see here in Gandalf is Amdir. He's of course talking about the Mines of Moria. He's been through them before, thus he has hope that they'll be able to get through together as a company. Contrasting with Amdir is Estel. I'm sure quite a few of you recognize this as one of Aragorn's names. It also of course means hope, but it's deeper and more complex. I'll quote Tolkien Gateway here as they put it really, really well. Estel refers to the belief that Eru Iluvatar, the creator of the universe, or Ea, is good, and that his designs for his creatures will ultimately be good as well, despite the troubles that seem to plague Arda, this world. Certain knowledge of what is to happen to the elves after the end of Arda has thus been withheld from them, so that all they can rely on is Estel. Now, you may or may not agree with Tolkien's Catholic beliefs, but his concept of Estel is very much rooted in the Christian faith. It's a deep understanding that things will end up good, even if the immediate is terrible. And it goes back to shall prove but mine instrument. All things, even evil things, will work towards the good end that Eru has planned for Arda. Now that we have that understanding of Estel and Amdir, we can keep that in mind kind of as we progress, especially throughout the book. You'll start seeing it in little places all the time, even if I forget to bring them up, so pay attention. And we see Gandalf continue with his Amdir. Even though Boromir suggests they take a route that is about 5 times as long, Gandalf provides some optimism. Boromir wants to travel south along the Misty Mountains, travel along the south of the White Mountains, and then travel east from there and go north up to Minas Tirith. Of course, other than the fact that Gandalf never really plans to go to Minas Tirith and it takes him pretty close to Saruman, it's an obscenely long route. Like, way too long. Gandalf doesn't think they have the time, and I agree with him. But Gandalf's Amdir comes out here. Since our open attempt on the mountain pass, our plight has become more desperate, I fear. I see now little hope if we do not soon vanish from sight for a while and cover our trail. Therefore, I advise that we should go neither over the mountains nor around them, but under them. That is a road, at any rate, that the enemy will least expect us to take. When he says he would have no hope, he's talking about Amdir, general optimism. He knows better than anyone else in the company that Eru will do what he promised. But Gandalf also says he has no hope unless they get out of sight. It's exactly what Sauron would least expect. That takes us back to the council. Sauron would never think to destroy the ring because it's not something that he would do. But I think Gandalf's phrasing everything this way is a way to bolster hope, the Amdir of the company. He's not appealing to their Estel. He's working very hard just to give them run-of-the-mill hope. This brings up an interesting thought. Whose hope is he worried about? Boromir's? I don't think he really cares that much. Like, how much hope does Boromir have? I don't think he cares. He knows Boromir's only goal is just to get back to Minas Tirith. Legolas? I kind of feel like he's just off in his little own elf world and Gandalf doesn't need to worry about him at all. It's possible that even though Legolas is a Sylvan elf, he has a much longer view of life in the world and he doesn't need any hope because he is so grounded in Estel already. We'll see in a second that Aragorn has no Amdir for this little venture, which is exactly why they tried the Path of Caradhras first. He's doing this for the hobbits. And while it's mostly for Frodo, since he's, has the biggest responsibility in the company, it's for the other hobbits too. And this might be me being a little cynical, but here's why I think the other three hobbits are almost as important as Frodo to keep them optimistic. They'll be a drag to deal with if they're left without any hope. Can you imagine trying to drag three half-size humans around who just have no hope? You would have to keep a constant eye on them. It would almost be like Aragorn's travels with Gollum, just awful. And Gimli's just plain excited to go to Moria, so no Amdir needed there. But let's hear what Aragorn has to say about their new possible path. I will, said Aragorn. You followed my lead almost to disaster in the snow and have said no word of blame. I will follow your lead now, if this last warning does not move you. It is not of the ring, nor of us others that I am thinking now, but of you, Gandalf. And I say to you, if you pass the doors of Moria, beware. I think this is one of those times our characters have foresight. I don't think it's Aragorn being petulant and giving Gandalf bad news because he doesn't want to go. He's having a premonition, a prophecy, if you will. Clearly, he has no Amdir here. The voice of reason then speaks up in the voice of Frodo. The hobbits said nothing. Sam looked at Frodo. At last, Frodo spoke. I do not wish to go, he said, but neither do I wish to refuse the advice of Gandalf. I beg there should be no vote until we have slept on it. Gandalf will get votes easier in the light of the morning than in this cold gloom. How the wind howls! Let's sleep on it, he says. It's a good idea. They're all tired from almost dying on top of Caradhras, and a clear head is always good to have when trying to make important decisions. So that's, good. But you can tell how tired Frodo is and how tired everyone is by the fact that it takes a few moments for them to actually realize what's happening. At these words, all fell into silent thought. They heard the wind hissing among the rocks and trees, and there was a howling and wailing round them in the empty spaces of the night. Suddenly, Aragorn leapt to his feet. How the wind howls, he cried. It is howling with wolf voices. The wargs have come west of the mountains. And I would probably just lie down and die at this point. I would have barely survived the blizzard and now I have to run away from freaking wargs. Hard pass. I'd pretty much feel like Pippin here. I wish I'd taken Elrond's advice, muttered Pippin to Sam. I'm no good after all. There is not enough of the breed of Bandabris the bull roarer in me. These howls freeze my blood. I don't ever remember feeling so wretched. My heart's right down on my toes, Mr. Pippin, said Sam. But we aren't eaten yet, and there are some stout folk here with us. Whatever may be in store for old Gandalf, I'll wager it isn't a wolf's belly. Sam here is showing, even though he seems a little slow, he knows what's up. He knows Gandalf isn't going down without a fight. I would love to say it was a premonition or foresight given to him or something like that. But I really think it's just his eternal optimism. We love Sam. As the wargs gather and then attack, we see something interesting. They have better tactics than the Nazgul. If you haven't seen the video about the attack on Weathertop, check that out over here. Essentially, I think the Nazgul, without their immense aura of fear, are average bad guys at best. The wargs here actually put up a fight, attacking from every direction at once. It's not a massively important thing, but it just reminds me how I cannot get over how poor the Nazgul tactics were. So, of course, I'm just bringing it up again. During the fight, Gandalf casts another spell that I want to look at for just a second. But of course, let's get the full picture because Tolkien's writing is amazing. In the wavering firelight, Gandalf seemed to suddenly grow. He rose up, a great menacing shape like the monument of some ancient king of stone set upon a hill. Stooping like a cloud, he lifted a burning branch and strode to meet the wolves. They gave back before him. High in the air, he tossed the blazing brand. It flared with a sudden white radiance like lightning, and his voice rolled like thunder. Naur an Edrith Amen, Naur dan I Garhoth, he cried. Okay, first off, freaking whoa. Gandalf is superpowered, and this is just Gandalf 1.0, if you don't mind spoilers. But let's take a quick look at the spell he casts. So since I'm terrible at Elvish, I'm relying on elfdict.com for this translation. Their rough translation is, "Fire be saving of us. Fire against the wolf horde." The keen-eyed among you probably already saw the easy word Naur, and that's fire. Like Sammath Naur, the cracks of doom, even though it doesn't say fire. But the really keen-eyed among you would have recognized Garhoth, as in Tol in Garhoth, the Isle of Werewolves, which was Sauron's fortress island in the river Sirion in the First Age. I love it when Tolkien pulls things together to help create this cohesive history. If only I wasn't so crap at languages. Now, as they start their hopefully quick march to find the Gates of Moria, we get a bit of a taste of how Boromir is feeling right now. "I do not know which to hope," said Boromir grimly. "That Gandalf will find what he seeks, or that coming to the cliff, we shall find the gates lost forever. All choices seem ill, and to be caught between wolves and the wall, the likeliest chance. Lead on." All throughout the journey so far, Boromir has been pretty chill. He hasn't yelled at anyone or demanded they listen to him because he knows what he's talking about or whatever. He's made suggestions and does pretty much only exactly as much as it seems he had to do to keep everybody alive. But here we see a bit more honesty from him. We also see him being a little fatalistic. Everything's terrible and we're probably gonna die anyway, so let's get moving so we're at least doing something instead of just waiting to die. And honestly, I like his attitude here. Not that I'm particularly fond of someone so fatalistic, but he's trying to do what he can to keep everybody moving. He may not have a lot of hope, but you can always do what you can do. I like it. And as the company reaches the Gates of Moria, the tone seems to flash from dark and ominous to wonder to lighthearted and back to dark and ominous. The stream is low and the water they have to cross is unclean. There are ripples in the lake despite how unclean it feels. The doors glow in the moonlight. Gimli and Legolas bicker lightly about who's more at fault in the unfriendship of dwarves and elves. Gandalf asks Boromir if he's stupid, and the foul water looms. Now, I love going through the book and finding things that other authors stole in homage to Tolkien. Gandalf trying to open the Moria doors is one of them. At one point he yells, "Adro, Adro," or "Open, open." Patrick Rothfuss uses the word Adro in his yet unfinished series, The Kingkiller Chronicles. The main character hits the chest and yells, "Adro," trying to get it to open. It's not crazy important. I just like seeing the little nods of Tolkien and sharing them. The other thing to note is what Boromir does. Bill the pony almost runs away and Boromir decides to pull a Pippin before Pippin even pulls a Pippin. "Do not let him run away," said Boromir. "It seems that we shall need him still. If the wolves do not find us, how I hate this foul pool." He stooped and picking up a large stone, he cast it far into the dark water. The stone vanished with a soft slap. But at the same instant, there was a swish and a bubble. Great rippling rings formed on the surface out beyond where the stone had fallen, and they moved slowly towards the foot of the cliff. So this is where it gets ominous again. You have to wonder if this is what caused the Watcher to come to them. I have no answer because earlier as they were crossing the stream, there came a soft sound, a swish followed by a plop, as if a fish had disturbed the still surface of the water. Turning quickly, they saw ripples, black edged with shadow in the waning light. Great rings were widening outward from a point far out into the lake. There was a bubbling noise and then silence. The dusk deepened and the last gleams of the sunset were veiled in cloud. So maybe the Watcher was woken as they crossed and decided to wait to attack. I don't have any answers to this, but what I do know is that when it decided to attack, it went for Frodo first. I've heard lots of different things about what the Watcher is and if it's working for Sauron or not, but the fact is that it went straight for Frodo, which is super sus. But even if it's just a horrible, wretched, evil creature birthed in the bowels of the earth and not working for Sauron, I can understand it going for Frodo first, because Frodo has the ring. The Watcher is drawn to the evil power of the ring because that's what it is, an evil power. That's at least the headcanon I kind of have now. Now they all escape the Watcher and get inside the mines. The doors slam shut, rocks and trees piled in front of the door. This, I feel, is an important distinction to the movies where there is a big cave-in and they have to dive out of the way to not get crushed. Why is it important, you may ask? Because it won't be a massive mining undertaking to get the doors working again. And the beautiful mithril picture isn't destroyed. This keeps the doors open, pun intended, for Moria to become a thriving hive of doors once again. And I'd love that. So there's at least 3 times I would have died in the first half of this chapter alone. The reason that sticks in my head so hard is because as I read the chapter, I'm consistently impressed with how everyone in the company handles these ridiculous situations. They may offer a few complaints here and there, but it's nothing lasting. There are kind and uplifting words all around, and they all just keep soldiering along, even when they don't feel like it, or they definitely don't like it. They do what they must, something that I fear may be getting lost nowadays. And that brings us to the end of part 1 of Journey in the Dark. Join me next week as we start the perilous journey through the mines of Moria. Thank you all so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and until next time, Out and Tulava, they shall come again.